I'd like to introduce Mary Griese and her debut novel, Where Crows Would Die. Mary, could you tell us what your book is about, without too many plot spoilers, please?
Yes, this is the book. It's published by Adulthood in Aberystwyth, set in the 1960s, in rural Wales. The story of it centres around two families, both eccentric. Bethan is 10. She moves from Bath to a remote house at the foot of the mountain, and she's immediately drawn to a farming family who live further up the mountain, live in a very feral way, which is a great shock to Bethan. She befriends one of the daughters, but it's the troubled half-brother that fascinates her and scares her.
And the family, yes, you described them very well as being rather feral, living on their wits and living quite a hard life. Okay, your book has been described as Welsh noir. Is that a good description?
Yes, I was very pleased when the publishers labelled it noir, because it's a very dark story. The landscape is bleak, and I think it's very apt.
And Morgan is a noir character, isn't he, I think?
Yes.
He's rather unpredictable, and the landscape is very bleak, and I wondered if you could read a bit from your book.
Yes. This is quite near the beginning. Nia and Bethan, both aged 10, have just been to the river. A matted head rose from the water and shook itself, dog-like, and Bethan took off. Tears clouded her eyes and her throat burned at the impatient crack in her new friend's voice. She far preferred Nia to the neat, skipping hopscotch girls. Wild farm girl, always in possession of 2 penknives, one delicate, inlaid with mother of pearl, stolen, and one for sheep's feet. Moving fast through strangulated undergrowth was impossible, and an embedded bramble tripwired her flat on her face, out of Nia's sight, she hoped. She crunched through the grey ash of an old fire to the kissing gate, back onto Cumgrach land, where the closely grazed slopes made running easier. A rising moon flickered. She skidded on black bullet sheep droppings. Another figure, this time of small stature with mad hair. Her father, motionless on the footbridge, showed no surprise at seeing her, merely lifted a finger to his lips to shush her and pointed up the hill towards Cumgrach. No house or buildings to be seen, just the silhouette of the roofless pigsty, a feathering of trees and sparkling dots.
That's beautiful and beautifully described, and the story has overtones of Wuthering Heights. I suppose Morgan is the most fascinating character. How would you describe him to someone who hadn't read the book?
Oh goodness, menacing, unpredictable, charming, in equal measure.
Yes, all those things.
Plausible rogue.
Yes, a plausible rogue, and quite frightening, actually. And Bethan gets quite drawn into his world, doesn't she? And
totally.
Finds it's harder to get out of it than she thinks.
Yes.
So you obviously know a lot about the Welsh farming community, because you've got a lot of detail in there about the sheepdogs and the sheep farming, the hill farmers. Did you live in Wales?
Yes, we farm sheep on the Black Mountain. Yes, a very unusual time. We were there for about 11 years, and we had 300 sheep and several sheepdogs.
So is that what inspired you to write?
Yes, yeah.
The book?
Yes, and I think the life hasn't changed. It's still a really hard way of life, and I've got great admiration for the Welsh, a stoic breed.
And they've been like that for hundreds of years.
Well, they farm sheep in that way with dogs since biblical times.
Yes, and I love the cover of your book. Perhaps you can hold it up.
Thank you.
Tell me about the cover.
Yes, I was lucky enough to be able to paint the cover myself, and the title came from a chat with another farming friend, and we were talking about a nasty character, and he said, Oh, Juju, that one would live where crows would die. In other words, he'd live on next to nothing.
Which sort of echoes some of the characters in your story.
Yes.
And finally, are you writing anything else? Have you written anything else?
Yes, I've almost finished the second novel.
So we'll look forward to reading that. And you can buy this one now. Good bookshops online. And it's a very good read.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.